One consultant asked one time, who really cares whether you win or lose this race? Other than your wife or your husband, other than your mother, does anybody really care whether you're going to win or lose? Now, that shouldn't deter you necessarily, but you've got to look at who your base of support is, whether it's your church, whether it is your political party, whether it is the Tea Party, or whether it is some left-wing, who is really pushing you and supporting your candidacy, and can you identify those layers of support? Because that's where your source of volunteers and contributions will come from. I'm going to stop because I want to have a good free flow during this conversation. I know Lucas has much to add as well, but free flow during this conversation. I know Lucas has much to add as well, but everything I say is I hope you will take as being very positive toward a candidacy for office. There's not a better experience in life, win or lose, than devoting yourself to a campaign and offering yourself for public office.
Thank you, Congressman Lucas.
Right. Thank you, Martine. And first, thanks to Martine, my good friend, for inviting me up to speak to the group this morning. Michael Lindsay and Angela DeLille, all good friends, people I've had the good fortune of working with over the years, and I'm delighted to be here this morning and see such a great turnout of individuals who are interested in public service and what it requires to be in elected office, and I think that's very positive. And first, the Congressman, I'm just honored to be on the panel with him this morning for someone who's done so much for not only Northwest Arkansas, but Arkansas in general, and in an area of the state that has produced so many good leaders over the years, and obviously has so much to brag on in terms of all of the good things that are happening in Northwest Arkansas. But again, I applaud you for showing an interest in public service. I wholeheartedly agree with the Congressman in that it is a very noble profession, and the future of our state resides in the talent that are willing to step up and make personal sacrifices, and put themselves at the scrutiny of the media and the left, the right, and others. It really is, something that's vitally important to where we want to be in Arkansas going forward. I think, as the Congressman said, there's just no substitute for experience in terms of getting out there and doing it, learning what works, what doesn't work, what it requires. Many times candidates fail 1, 2, 3, 4 times, in fact, and I think that failure should not deter you from re-entering a political race. It should actually empower you, knowing where some of the landmines are and how you might improve upon what you've done in the past. Certainly name ID is important. So getting yourself out there, showing that commitment, building a base of support. If you've run a race in the past that you can be proud of and worked hard, and maybe the timing just wasn't right. And I think that's something that's also important to note in public service, is so much of it has to do with timing, depending on if you're in a partisan race where you're running as a D or an R, what might be happening at the national level that may or may not have anything to do with what's happening in Arkansas, yet may have an impact on your ability to get elected. There's also circumstances out of your control at the local level that may have an impact on your electability, and I think that timing, while it should be a factor in your deliberations as you consider running for office, also understand that it may be that you make the hard choice to get in a race and it just wasn't the right year. But not to say that it won't be in a year or two or somewhere down the road. I think that any good campaign should start with one fundamental question: am I doing this for the right reasons? Is this something I really care about, that I can think about when I wake up and go to sleep and be invested in? And if it's a school board, do I really care about education? Or, my kids are in the school system. I know that that's so fundamental to the success of a community long term. Can I get excited about it? Am I passionate? Do I understand the issues? I think that oftentimes elected office can be glorified. That may or may not be the reality once you're actually in it. For many people, it's a sacrifice, not only in terms of income, but also time away from your family, again, you know, the media now, especially with social media, there's just complete transparency and access to information, and you have to be comfortable operating, you know, in an era that frankly is a lot different than 20 and 30 years ago. So I think that question, and then I think also it's important to begin with a pretty comprehensive assessment of the race, and that is from an introspective standpoint. Am I willing to get on the phone, make calls, raise money, walk neighborhoods, do all of the hard things that people often don't talk about, but that are all ingredients in a good candidate? Is my job, in my work situation, compatible with doing that? My family situation, etc. So really an assessment of what it would take, and then arriving at the place where I want to do this for the right reasons. I've made an assessment of what it would take, be it the legislature, Congress, mayor, school board, and then I think having discussions with your network of folks. We have all been blessed to have mentors. I know I've had more than my fair share that have helped steer me in the right direction over the years. People you turn to for valuable advice, members of the community that hold influence, that can help you run a successful race. I think that's very healthy. At the end of the day, no one can make the decision for you. It's ultimately, if you look in the mirror and decide this is something I want to do, you know, I'm going to put my heart and soul into it, and I know I can, with the right race, you know, have success. I think it's important to start early. That doesn't mean if you wake up one day and the dynamics have shifted and there's a window that you can jump in a little bit later, but I do think, you know, whatever office it is, starting to think about it early. And don't be afraid to get out there early. I've got a good friend of mine, a college friend of mine who's a very bright, strong leader in Little Rock that ran for elected office, state representative a few years ago, and he just waited so late to get in. By that point, the other candidates had solidified all the support, and he was, you know, very capable, raised a lot of money, did all the right things. He just was late to the game, and at that point, there just wasn't a whole lot of support to go out there and put together. But as the congressman said, I think it's so healthy for our democracy to have people from different backgrounds serving together, and I think that's really what was intended, you know, when the system was set up, be it small business owners, lawyers, doctors, just I think that diversity of people that come from different experiences serving together, trying to solve problems, I think is a very good thing. I'm gonna stop talking, and I'm very excited about interacting and answering questions and discussing what I think are key ingredients to a successful campaign. Martine?
Great, thank you. Good, that was very insightful. We will take questions from the audience, but I'd like to take a point of personal privilege and ask the first question. As we are here in Northwest Arkansas, you all have spoken articulately about what your perception is about what it takes to be a good candidate. I'm curious about what is a qualified candidate here in Northwest Arkansas, and is that different from the rest of the state? And if so, why is that? Congressman, I'll start with you.
Well, the issues are different. You know, I think the comments that we made would be just as applicable in South